preparing. Hold on.
Hey,
Hey,
hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Code Noobs live stream. Good morning, Randall and Danny. It is
what's up, man?
Saturday, April 20th. You know,
Smoke
that,
them if you got them.
that day. Yeah, that day in April when everybody's just a little bit foggy headed. Good morning. How are you guys this morning?
Ah, doing great.
Nice. You got
Doing
your
well.
coffee, you got your
I
anything
got
else?
coffee. I got
Got
coffee. I
tea?
got good feelings. I got overworked mind.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I
I
think
got
we're all
coffee
in
and
the
tea.
same spot this week. This week has been a long week.
Yeah, it has.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Before we
Speaking
get
of,
before we get into it,
There we go.
let's
That's it.
everybody who's watching the video in the comments let us know what you're doing on this 420 day. Nothing
yeah, let
illegal, of
us
course,
know.
but it's
Oh,
legal
it
in
is
many states.
420. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
They
why I
didn't
said
get
smoke
that
them if you
whole
got them, and not just like.
I was
I
trying to
know.
make it sly, but
Well, now it's legal
Okay.
everywhere. It's not,
I
you don't
know.
need to
Yeah,
be sly about it. You can just be like, smoke two spliffs and call me in the
Yeah,
morning.
yeah,
exactly. So if you're doing that, let us know in the comments if it's
yeah.
legal because we don't want you to get in trouble.
Hmm.
But
Bingo.
yeah. Good morning, Bryce. Good morning, Chris.
Whoa, we got the
How you
turnout
guys
this
doing?
morning. Morning,
Oh
guys.
yeah, we're getting that turnout, man.
Any ladies watching yet this morning? I know there's a bunch in the
Crickets.
group. Let us know down in the comments if you are.
Chris
And
also has a
there is that
coffee. Good
rule of the
man.
internet. I forget it's like the anonymous rules of the internet or something like that. Rule number something. Any girl on the internet is not actually a girl.
Oh, yeah. They're. I know it's funny. They're rules,
There's some dude programming in his basement.
pretty
Well,
much.
I mean, guys, the number one vulnerability for guys is girls. So careful out there.
Ah, that is that a hacking thing?
Dude, every skilled social engineer is female.
Yeah,
And
that makes
yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Because guys are just stupid about it. They're like, oh, this girl wants to be my friend. I have no friends, and this beautiful girl wants to be my friend on Facebook.
Here's
Absolutely.
my bank card.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's my bank card. Like, oh
All
yeah,
right.
whatever. Just take my money.
Totally.
Well, um, today's
What's
topic
the
is not about
topic?
hacking. It's actually about how to set yourself apart from other entry level developers.
Why would
And
you want to do that?
yeah, the reason I chose this topic is because I've been talking to a lot of people this week who have been struggling with that, right? Who've been out there trying to get a job and wondering why every time they send out a resume, they just hear crickets, why there's nothing going on for them. So,
See, but I was told that all you need to do is one, go to sign up for a boot camp.
yes,
Two, collect as much free information as you can online.
yes,
Three, make like a dozen really bad portfolio websites.
yes,
Four, make tic-tac-toe and I don't know, like one Docker container and just
yep,
list all of this on your resume as your experience like Docker expert and
yeah.
double Docker expert, whatever it may be. And then I was told that's all you had to do, and
You,
then you could get
well, you
hired as
have
a
to,
developer.
you miss this. You have to also list every single coding language that has ever existed. That's the other
Oh,
part.
true, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can only click
Dr.
quick
Docker.
apply.
Doctor,
Yeah,
doctor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to easy apply to
easy
every
apply.
job
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what's
I
funny
was told
too?
if you do that, you'll get hired by Facebook or Google or Amazon or
Well,
Netflix within
you
a
don't
year.
even have to apply. They just call you. They just call all
That's
the
the best
new
part.
boot camp
Oh, yeah.
graduates
You know,
and they just hand jobs out to them. That's
you know,
actually how it works.
you know what's funny too? It's like on, oh my God, on LinkedIn, like, dude, the easy apply are all scams. That's all they are.
Hmm.
It's all
Hmm.
predatory scams, dude.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like
insane.
I I actually
There's
had
zero
a call with
oversight.
somebody last week and I was asking them to sort of like walk me through. Okay, so let me just back up. By the way, that was all sarcasm. Don't actually
You know,
do that. Do like the opposite of all of that.
that was
But
all a joke.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I was talking to somebody last week and I was like, walk me through because they wanted some help with, getting a job, landing their first job. And they actually have experience as a developer, right? Not really like went to boot camp, but worked in a job where they were getting paid to do work with Python and things like that. And I was like, hey, walk me through. Bryce said during I was taking notes. um, so I said, walk me through, what you're doing to apply for jobs. And they were like, oh, I just like go on LinkedIn and I basically like hit easy apply and and then I was like, cool, then what do you do? And they're like, nothing. Like it's like, what happens after that? Like, I don't know. Not I get no response. And so I think that's, it's so easy to fall into this trap of just like, hey, I'm just gonna like apply for a bunch of stuff the
I want to
easiest
tell a
way
story.
possible, and
I want to
then
tell a
get nothing.
story.
Go ahead, tell your story.
Okay. So, not exactly coding related, but back before I did development, I was a veterinarian.
Hmm.
Now, in order to do that, you have to go to veterinary school, which is hard to get into, also costs $250,000.
Yeah,
So,
Yay.
when I graduated, I wanted to work with dairy cows, could not because they didn't even earn enough money to cover my student loans. So, I
yeah,
ended up trying to find the highest paying veterinary job. So, I worked emergency, but also what I did was I heard you could basically work at a whole bunch of different veterinary clinics. You could basically have your own business as a veterinarian and go and work at a whole bunch of places. Now, all of my classmates, they went, they found a job. You know, they
yeah,
they applied, they did the easy apply, whatever it may have been. They got a job, they worked at one place. I, on the other hand, heard that, hey, if you approach all these places, that maybe you'll get work and you can name your price, you can name your schedule, all of this stuff. So nobody was showing me this. I just kind of heard rumors that this was possible. So I
yeah,
went and I gave it a try. And I went around and it was scary at first. I didn't know what I was doing. People were asking, have you done this before? And I was like, well, I've worked at some places before, but I didn't
I've
necessarily
done
say,
things before.
yeah, exactly. I didn't lie to them, but I didn't tell them the whole truth that I hadn't done this before. But I got one job and then I got two and then before I knew it, I had more work than I could handle and I was
yeah,
able to name my price. And the benefit of that was being able to gain experience from a dozen different veterinary clinics and every place did stuff differently.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
after doing this for a year or two, I was the go-to guy because I knew what was done pretty much across the whole entire region and I knew
yeah,
the best practices from everywhere, and I was able to do the best work for the people that I was working for. So that increased the price I was able to command even higher. And so I want to tell that story because that can relate to becoming a developer.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I've had
absolutely.
conversations with people recently where they're like, "Oh, you can't do freelance work. The market's flooded. There's not." And I hear this all the time. I hear this all the time from unemployed people that like
Yeah,
the market's flooded. I've every single developer I know that has work, they're turning down work left and right. But
yeah,
everybody who's unemployed is like, there's too many people out there. And it's just not, I mean, basically the truth is whatever you want it to be.
You know what's funny?
yeah,
There's a lot of people out there, but there's a lot of bad people out there too. And I
yeah,
think that's the other thing. Like, you know, it's hard to find good people. And I think in your situation, that is a good example because you went out and you made yourself too, like more valuable by also learning everything at each of these places and understanding. You were conscientious to know what the best practices were at each of the places so that when you come back, you're like somebody that works there all the time, It's like you know exactly what they do.
Yeah.
yeah,
So there's another part to this story that I wanted to tell. So like, I, this is kind of the topic that we're talking about today, like how to stand out from other people, because I did the exact opposite of what everybody else was doing. But after
yeah,
I was doing it for a while, I told my friend about it, who's somewhat more business minded than me. And so what he did was he just started a company that went out and got contracts with all these different veterinary clinics that needed help. And so then he became the middleman for a whole bunch of veterinarians. So he's just basically making money off the top doing it as well. So like
that's
it's
awesome.
something, yeah. So it's something where if you think outside the box, like not only can it get you work, but also it can turn into something so much bigger. Like let's say you
Yeah.
start doing freelance work and you get good at finding work. Well, guess what? You can find a whole bunch of unemployed developers. I guarantee
Yeah,
Yeah.
that.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's actually what I had talked to that person about in my conversation is like I was saying to them basically everything that you've explained so far is as they already knew the same thing that every other developer is doing. And so if you do the same thing that every other developer out there is doing, all the hundreds of thousands of developers out there are doing the same thing. They're just clicking easy apply, or they're doing the minimum effort work. You're going to get the same results, right? So like obviously we want to not do that. And so today we're going to talk about some ways that you can sort of avoid going down that route of just like doing the same things over and over. And I think one of the things to start out that you're sort of talking about here, Randall, is the catch 22 of every job wants somebody who's already has experience, but how do you get experience before you start applying, right? And so what I took from what you just mentioned is that, you know, you need that first one, right? You need somebody like I think you sent us a video the other day that I think was I forget what it is, how to
Oh, the
find it. But
dancing
it's like
thing.
of a music concert, and it's like this dude dancing by himself for like a half hour, and nobody joins him. And then a second person finally joins him, and then within like minutes, like hundreds of people join in, right? And that's what you need is your first job, right? Your first work. And you're not going to get that at Google, right? Google is not going to be the first person to join you because Google has the power to choose whoever they want, right? So you have to set your standard low and get whatever work you can. Go ahead,
Well,
Danny.
the thing is too, just you gotta get the thing that sets you apart is real work, because that's the other problem. Like so many people are
Yes.
coming out of these things, and yeah, like you might have even made some cool stuff, like on your own, but you've never worked for anybody. You don't have that experience. You know, I got paid. So even if the works doesn't pay anything, even if it's for
Yeah.
free, that's fine for a first
But
step
it's
because you need
real
that
work
step. Yes,
for a real
exactly.
company or
You
yeah.
delivered something. You finished because I think that's the other problem when people see like a portfolio with a bunch of stuff. It's like, well, none of it's actually finished. None of it was actually put in production. None of it was
Yeah.
actually dealt with all the problems that come with that. Like, there's a whole process to it that I think you miss when you're just doing like side projects because you're not completing stuff. So, like, yeah, you could do something on your own and actually complete it. That would actually be a really cool thing too, like a passion project or something. But you need
Yeah.
something that's finished.
And it's not practical. I wanted to mention a few things. So, number
Yeah,
one, Bryce wrote in the comments when we were starting out, we cannot demand the same compensation as those with experience. Freelance with less compensation gives you the experience to ask for higher compensation. I
yeah,
100% agree with that. Like, could not
absolutely.
be more on point with that comment. I wanted to say this too is when I was first starting out, once I got out of boot camp, they never really did a passion project in our boot camp. They just like made us build this crap website, like the
Terrible.
ugliest website I've ever seen in my life. And then they're like, okay, go ahead, find a job. And it's like, yeah, how am I going to find a job with this piece of crap on my resume, like on my portfolio? This website is so ugly. So I was like, I'm going to build an actual project that solves some problem that I have, which is what I consider a passion project. A lot of these boot camps, they call it a capstone project. And I don't think that describes it well. I like calling it a
No,
passion project because it has to be something that you are passionate about. It's going to help you work through that project to the end and deliver on that. And I think that's the biggest point here is like I know I talk about this a lot and it's not to brag. I just want people to see that you can actually do this on your own. I built a project. I think I finished it last August. It took me maybe 1 or 2 months to complete, which, yeah, that's some time, but you're going to end up spending that time looking for a job anyway, most likely. So build a project while you're doing that. It took me a couple months to do. I completed in August. Right now, it has over 8,500 users.
it's
Okay.
awesome.
Like
Yeah,
amazing. And it makes $50 to $60 a day very easily. So I'm making money and I haven't touched it in 6 months. I haven't touched the code. I haven't like bothered with it at all. I coded it once. And that's like the power of being a developer is you have this leverage now that you can just create things in the world that people use. Tons of people are just like, wow, thank you so much for this. Like there's a whole Reddit post about it. And people were like, just every single day are like, this has changed my life. Like, this is an amazing tool. I use this every single day. And I make tons of money from it, from just sitting around and doing nothing. Right. And it just grows on its own. Like, I don't even advertise it, nothing. Every time I look at it, I'm like, wow, there's like 100 new users, like right
yeah.
now. It's crazy. And
But you
you
know
can
what's
do this on your own. Like, this is something that you can do when you go through a boot camp. You may not be able to like instantly just go work for a company, but you can still build things. So why are you just sitting on your ass just pressing easy apply, right?
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I think it's funny because I remember some of the capstone projects they displayed from our boot camp. They were terrible.
Yeah.
None of them were finished. None of them were put into production. You know, because
Yeah,
they never even taught people how to do that, which was the other thing I thought was such a huge failure. Like, they never
totally.
took something from start to finish, which you need to figure out how to do if you're going to build things on your own. So you have to learn yourself. And I think what
Yeah.
people forget is like nobody can make you learn something for you. Like
Yeah.
you have to do it. And yeah, it's hard and yeah, it's gonna suck at times and it's gonna be headaches, but that's how you get good at something. And like all of us, like we took on stuff after boot camp that like probably was above our head at first, but we figured it
Totally.
out, and that's how you really learn. And we just kept trying because eventually you will get it. And I think that's the other thing, like about passion project, solving a problem, like you actually went through from start to finish and actually produced something that's being used, that's out there in the world. And that's like such a leg up, dude. Like from
Yeah.
anybody else who's starting out because you have real experience now. And you
Yeah.
made that
And
experience yourself.
yeah, when I was like having that conversation too, they were telling me how, they've started, like they did a boot camp and they like started a capstone project, but they never really completed it. And they were like, "Do you think I should complete this before I apply for jobs?" And I was like, 100% yes, because think about the message that you're sending to a hiring manager. What, like, I know everybody who's listening is probably gonna have 100 more questions after this. Now, I want you to imagine that you're the hiring manager, right? Ask that question as if you're the hiring manager and then answer it. Okay. Because basically they were like, should I finish these capstone projects? Well, what message are you sending to this hiring manager? That I started a project that I couldn't complete? That's
Yeah.
literally the message you're sending, right? Or do you want to send the message of I built something on my own from beginning to end, I delivered it, it has users, I'm making money from it. What Look at just the difference in those two messages. They're huge. One is like this is a person who can take on a challenge, anything I give them, and see it through to the end and make sure that it works. Or
Yeah.
this is a person who hit one roadblock and just quit. Do I want to hire that person or that person? Like very simple, right?
It shows that you can like learn on your own. It shows that you can solve problems. And the other thing that's important too, and I think people forget this. Like I was listening to this was a while ago. I was listening to a podcast that was like it was a recruiter, and he was talking about getting hired as a developer and like what steps
Yeah.
you should do. And he said new developers, that's one of the mistakes they make is they'll put on their resume projects that aren't finished and stuff. And he's like,
Yeah.
do one project, finish it, because then you can actually say on your resume, like, I did this project, I finished it, A, but here's some of the problems I ran into. Here's how I solved them. Because
Exactly.
that shows like, look, I was doing it on my own. Yeah, I might have gotten stuck. Maybe I reached out to somebody. Maybe I figured out this weird way to get around this problem, or I figured out how to solve this solution by looking up these things online. But you can explain that to them. You can tell them in an interview about this stuff, and it shows that you're actually like a competent individual that's going to deliver things and going to
Totally.
work through when you're not going to give up when it's difficult because no company wants that, dude. Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to hire someone that's going to be like, I can't do this.
And they want to see your mental process. Like, because they
Yeah,
know when you've just, I mean, it's fairly obvious when you've just followed along with a coding tutorial and just did a project that somebody else did, especially when they start digging into it. If they ask you questions about it and you're like, well, I just typed what they said I should type, that
yeah,
that looks horrible, right? So you want something where you can answer questions like, yeah, when I hit this roadblock, and they don't care. You can say, I used ChatGPT to find a solution. And then I looked up on the docs how to implement that solution. That's awesome. They don't
yeah.
care how you got to that. They care that you actually pushed through a roadblock and figured out a way to solve it. So, yeah,
I think it's a good mind experiment for anybody listening. Is you have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing working? And
yeah,
that's going to be different for everybody. I mean, maybe somebody's goal is to get a job. Maybe somebody else's goal is just to design an app. Maybe somebody else's goal is to just learn. I don't know. But is what you're doing working? And if the answer is no, then look at what you're doing and stop doing it. Change
yeah,
it.
Yeah,
Do the
yeah,
opposite.
change it
Because
for
yeah.
if you
sure.
just continue doing what you're doing that's not working, it's just going to continue not working.
Totally.
Yeah, and like I think another point on this too is like if you're trying to get hired, I think one of the biggest mistakes we make too is it is nerve-wracking trying to get a job and talking to people. And even like starting out, like trying to talk to people for freelance stuff, you feel like you don't know a lot. It's scary, but developing those soft skills is crucial too, because a lot of developers lack them. A lot of
Yeah.
developers want to sit at home by themselves and code, which is cool. It's like I like doing that too. But you need to be able to actually communicate to people because when you can, then you can communicate your problems, you can communicate solutions, you can do a lot more, and you'll be way better off in those interviews that you do land when you can talk. I mean, we talked about this before, but there's so many times where I got on phones with interviewers from HR and like also with people within actually the team that's hiring, and they would comment on like how well spoken I was and how easy it was to talk to me, like how many times they tried to talk to developers and they like clam up, and it's like that's not a good
Yeah.
thing. You're
No,
gonna have
not at all.
struggle to get hired that way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hey, I
And
wanted to do
also,
this. Go ahead, Randall. Oh,
okay, so also this concept of like thinking outside the box, doing something that's difficult for you, doing something different. Everybody thinks, especially people who love watching the news, especially people who are all over social media,
Yeah.
they think there's this big they that are stopping them from doing things. Well, I can't do that because they won't let me, or they'll look down on me
mm,
for doing that, or they'll judge me, or it's not proper, or it's not right, or this is, there's this big they. But the thing is, at the end of the day, if you really want to do something with your life, you come to realize that the only person ever stopping you is you.
yeah.
Nobody, I mean, here's the bitter truth. Nobody cares about you. Like
Yeah.
really nobody cares about you that much to stop you. They have their own stuff they're dealing with. So like
Yeah.
if you're stopped and if you're blaming it on a they, it might be a moment to pause and say, okay, well, where am I stopping myself? Because I'm sure there's a little bit further that I could go.
Yeah. And also just recognizing too, I think that's a really good point that, you know, you might have to put more time in and do some stuff and take matters into your own hands and build up yourself, like your image first before you start doing these applications while you're doing them
Yeah.
at least. Because
I
applying doesn't
want,
take that long. Like it doesn't. Like, I mean, submitting applications doesn't take that long. You can do other stuff in the
no,
meantime, while you're working on it. So yeah.
I wanted to, because we only have like about 10 more minutes. I wanted to briefly give everyone like a lot of value. And so I wanted to sort of do this thought exercise with you guys. If you were just graduating boot camp, right? Let's take ourselves back a few years to like graduating boot camp. Take me through the actual steps of what you would do to land your first job
Like now, what are
right
we doing
now.
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go first if you guys want, but I'd love
I
to
mean,
hear what you guys have.
I guess like I had when we were in the boot camp, I had already started working for somebody, which was like, so that was helpful. But I think looking back, like what I would have done differently too now is like I I wouldn't have even bothered applying right away. I think that was a waste of time at the outset, and I realized that after like a little bit of time once I did it. But like that was a waste of time. I think what I would have done differently is I would have started working on other side projects on my own, really honing my skills on a couple things. Because like I think that's the other problem with boot camps is they want to give you the shotgun approach, like look at all this stuff I'm familiar with, and it's like who cares? You don't know it. Like
Yeah.
so, I would have really focused on like maybe five things that I really wanted to just drill down and get great at,
Hmm.
and then build something with those, and then I would have started applying. That would have been my
Okay.
approach differently, I think. Um, yeah, at least for just practical advice there. Yeah.
Cool.
So is this knowing what I know now or knowing what I knew then?
Knowing what
Just
you know
for
now.
no, oh dude, now I would destroy it. But here's
Yeah.
exactly what I would do
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
So I would I would have immediately dumped all that excess knowledge that they gave us.
Yeah.
Like, you know, all the cloud platforms, forgotten it until I needed them.
Yeah.
Docker, forgotten it until I needed it. All the other everything. And I would have just focused on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. Like that's it. And then while I was busy just uh, getting really good at that, I would have just gone out because from back in the day when I did SEO, I would just go out and I would call people on the phone, ask them if they needed a website. Back when I did that,
Mm.
easy logo.
Yeah.
I was doing it in WordPress back in the day. Now I use Squarespace. Just
Yeah.
go do that and just make a million websites and then charge the people to maintain them. And then
Yeah.
once I was doing that, then I could make custom websites from what I'd be learning in React and everything, and then just absolutely crush it. And now that I know a whole bunch of like OSINT techniques, I mean, I can find out the hiring managers of all different companies,
Yeah.
their private emails, all that type of stuff. So it's just
And
like I could
maybe
contact
we
all of
should
those
talk about
people
that
more
because I
directly.
actually got that question recently because people were like, well, how do I how do I find the hiring manager? Because sometimes it's not listed there. You
Mhm.
want to briefly explain that? And then I'll give my sort of what I would do.
Well, okay, so you got to check the website. Like
Yeah.
if a company has a job listing somewhere, you check their website. Now on their website, they may have email addresses listed, they may not. So you can do Google searches to look for email addresses pertaining to certain companies. There's also websites that do that specifically, like hunter.io, and there's some I think
Hmm.
there's some other ones that I have written
Hunter.io is
down.
good.
But yeah, and so you can basically find out emails associated with domain names, and then there you go. You have a whole bunch of people's emails that maybe they're not giving out to everybody, but now you have a direct way into the hiring manager. So you can just contact them, and then you can, go further with that.
Awesome.
Can I say one more thing too,
Yeah,
real
go
quick?
ahead, Danny.
The other thing I think too is like one thing looking back that I would have done differently too is get clear on what you want from
Yeah.
this. Because I think that's the other problem. Like I started out thinking I wanted to work for someone, but I don't really want to work for someone. I hate working for people. It's terrible. Like for me, I don't like it. Like I want
Yeah.
to work for myself. And so that's what I've been focusing on now. And I think that's the other thing too is like know that ahead of time because I think we all make this mistake that we think like, oh, degree equals job equals security, but really that's not the case. I
Not
mean,
at
look, I
all.
mean, we know that. So think about what you want from it too, and direct your efforts in that way that makes sense, right? Like, yeah, freelance work's great because if you do want a job, that's a good way to get started regardless anyway. But maybe you want to do that. So then focus on just that then and forget everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. All right, so here's what I would do. I'm gonna make this pretty detailed, but the first thing I would do is start working on my mindset because that is something that's
Yeah.
going to help you a lot in terms of getting a job. Is if you feel like you're not qualified, you're not good enough for a job, you're never going to get one because nobody else is going to see that you're qualified or good enough. So get working on your mindset first. Then the next thing I would do is like what you guys said is find a goal. Like what is my ideal scenario as a developer, right? Because there's a million different ways that you could go with this. So, but you really want to focus because if I just apply for everything, I'm going to get nothing. So I would really focus on what is my goal as a developer? What is the one thing I want to do? And once I have that in mind, then I'm going to start working on building portfolio projects that focus on that. And that would be like a passion project, or they can be simpler things as well, but just showing your skill set in that field. Then I would go online and look at my online presence because the first thing, if you're being taken seriously after you get past that, like just looking at your resume part where somebody's starting to dig into you, they're going to look at your online presence, right? So, do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have social media accounts like a Facebook account? Do you have a LinkedIn profile? Do you have a GitHub? Make all those look stunning. Okay.
Hey,
Like,
sorry, just
go ahead.
real quick. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the main things they said too. The recruiter said about getting your first job as a tech worker was like, you can't forget that stuff anymore. Like it's out there and they're absolutely going to look at it. And, even if you had Facebook 10 years ago, you don't use it, what's your pictures on there? What's your stuff showing you're doing, right? Go back and just rework all of that stuff because you need to make it all focused on one thing. Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah. So make like go back and make sure you have all that stuff. Then, inside of each of those, make sure that everything that somebody reads is focused on my goal. So if my goal is to be a front end React developer, everything should say like front end React developer, right? You want people to see like, okay, that's what this person does, right? Also, with your social media, remove all the pictures of yourself that suck and are not like showing that. Like if you have tons of pictures of you drunk in college or looking sloppy or whatever, remove those pictures. Nobody needs to see those, right? There's so many like pictures. I mean, I've done this years ago where I've just like removed everything off my Facebook profile because if anything, that just hurts you, right?
Yeah.
Then go and build some things that make you look good. Like build a YouTube channel and who cares? Just make videos about coding. Who cares how good you are? You're just showing that you like want to do this, right? Start a blog, start like putting out information where people can see, oh, if I look up your name, I'm going to find stuff about you saying like this person's a developer. It just makes you look that much
Dude,
better. Go
three
ahead.
of the easiest things you can do is a blog, YouTube channel, or podcast about your journey. Dude,
Yeah.
super easy. right? Where you
Totally.
just talk about, write about, what am I learning? What are my goals? How am I trying to get there? And what am I doing? Not hard.
Yeah.
Everybody can do that. And it also helps you build, I think, those soft skills too that you need and that confidence.
Exactly, because you're also getting out of your comfort zone. You're going to see that when you do that, it's actually a bit easier than you thought it was going to be, right? And that builds your confidence. Then I would start finding jobs and companies that I want to work for. I wouldn't just go on LinkedIn. You can go on LinkedIn and just spray and pray, but that shotgun approach is not going to work because that's what everyone else is doing. Again, like you are one of 10,000 people who are applying for a job, or realistically, at minimum, 1,000 people. So you have a one in a
Yeah.
thousand chance of even getting your resume looked at. Go ahead, Randall.
Yeah, so I mean, it's also important to understand whether you're in a hiring market or a getting hired market. It's kind of like a buyer's or seller's market in real estate, where
Mm,
like right now we're in a hiring market where there's way more applicants than there are jobs.
yeah,
But sometimes it flips. 5 years ago, it was the
totally.
exact opposite. There was not enough developers for all the hiring. So it always flips back and forth, and understanding where you are in that market helps because spray and pray is awesome when there's more jobs than developers.
Right.
But right now, you need to do something to stand out.
Yeah, and it will
Well,
go back to that at some point, but it's not right now.
Mhm.
no, and it always goes back and forth because people get discouraged and they go somewhere else and then you get less, right? But the
Yeah.
other thing too is I think the problem with the spray and pray too is like, I don't know. I was transitioning careers. I didn't want to be in a career I hated again. And you know what?
Yeah.
If you're spraying and praying, you might land in a job you don't even want to do. Like, do I really want to do back end? Like, do I really want to do, just whatever, just SQL or just React or just this, like think about that because if you're just shotgun approaching, you might get a job, but it might suck. It might not be one you
Yeah.
want, and then you're stuck.
Yeah. And the last thing I would do, what I was saying is I would look for maybe 5 or 10 companies that I really wanted to work for. Start with 5 or 10, and then you can keep going if, these are all swing and misses, but start with 5 or 10, really research the company, the people who are hiring, and the jobs that not even are necessarily available because sometimes you can get a job if you just show that you're qualified, even if they don't have a listing for it, right? Because they just want good people. Companies want good people. So then you find, okay, this is the company I want to work for. Then here's what I would do with LinkedIn. I wouldn't go and apply for them. I would find all the people that work in that company. You go to the company page and it shows you, 100 employees work here. Go to all those people and say, hey, so and so, my name's Russell. I'm really interested in working for this company because XYZ, I love whatever. I was wondering if you could maybe take 5 minutes to explain to me how you got hired and give me some advice on how I might, get a role in this company. Right. That looks awesome because these people are like, there's no stake in it for them, whether you get hired or not. But a lot of them are just be like, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, I'd love to help somebody out. They feel a little bit better about doing it. They get like a good, a little pat on the back for the day, and you get an in, right? You get somebody who's like, hey, I'd love to actually like send your resume to somebody, or they can at least give you sort of guidance on how to go about getting a job here. The last
Well,
thing, one second,
oh,
Dan.
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
The last thing I would do is I would not just apply with a resume, right? Apply in some creative way, not just the same, like you're handing a sheet of paper that just gets stacked with a bunch of sheets of paper, right? Think about that. And maybe not even a sheet of paper. A lot of people are just applying online, but that might be even something like send something in the mail that's like, your resume, not just like an email with your resume or whatever. I saw this like video the other day where there was a girl who was from Chicago and she was trying to get a job at Hollister in California. So she went to a local pizza shop, got a pizza box, and wrote on the inside, this isn't a deep dish pizza, but it's something even better, and wrote a link to her resume and sent it to the HR department. Now, think about the difference in the message that sends. It's like, am I just sending another resume that just can get thrown on a sheet of paper? Or is it like a pizza box they have to deal with now? And it's funny and creative and like thought provoking. They're like, wow, this person actually cares more than just sending a resume like everybody else is doing, right? So you got to
Well,
set
force them to
yourself
look at
apart.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're going to look at
Force
it
them.
because they're, of course, right? And that was one thing I said. this week I was like, send a candy bar to somebody with your resume wrapped around it. And they were like, don't you think that's blackmail? And I was like, no, no, it's not. Like, it's not bribing. It's not anything like that, right? It's like you're sending somebody a candy bar. You're allowed to do that. Like, you're allowed to think outside the box. They want people who do that stuff. They don't want the same person who's just doing the same thing and expecting extraordinary results. They want somebody who's like, hey, I'm going to approach this problem differently, right? And
Yeah.
that's what you have to do as a developer is you have to learn how to approach problems differently.
I used to tell kids that I was teaching in college all the time, like back in like the 50s and 40s, like 8% of people went to college. So yeah, you got out of college, you had that degree, you were gold. Because like there was so few people that had one. But that's
Yeah.
changed. Like, guess what? Nowadays, dude, like knowledge is everywhere. Everybody can learn stuff. Everybody can get degrees. It's not hard. So you're competing with a lot of people. So you have to find a way to make it count and set yourself apart and show people that you actually care about what it is. And I think that's the other
Yeah.
side of this too, is like, show that you actually, are able to do things and care. Because that's the other thing companies want. They want people that are competent, that are
Exactly.
responsible. And it's hard to find. It is.
It is because everyone's just following, the trend, following like the herd. And if you do that, especially here in software development, if you just follow the herd, you're going to go where they're all going, which is sort of just jumping off a cliff right now, right? They're all
Yeah.
just walking off a cliff. So you got to walk in the other direction and show people that you actually care and you're thinking differently than the rest of the world. So that would be my suggestion.
So, if you're tired of going it alone, like let's say you've been doing a whole bunch of this stuff on your own and it's just not working, well, maybe now's the time to try something different. And for those of you who are
Yeah.
interested, it may not be for you, but we do offer a web dev incubator. This is an awesome interactive environment with all three of us, and we help you do this stuff to not only do everything we talked about here, but also get you the job so that you can have the money, so that you can have the life that you actually want. Now, if you
Yeah.
are interested in this, you can contact any of us on Facebook. You can go to
Even better,
codemoves.io
if you are
slash
interested,
mentoring.
just write the word pizza in the comments below and we'll reach out to you. You don't even have to
Yeah.
reach out to us. Just write pizza and we're going to reach out to you and we'll have a nice conversation about how it all works. And yeah, continue, Randall. Sorry.
Yeah. So here's the thing, like your life isn't going to change until you actually do something about it. And it doesn't matter if you've made mistakes before. It doesn't matter, if things haven't worked out before, because every day is a new day and every opportunity is a new opportunity. Like I myself just did something where I dove into another boot camp because I realized that I was dragging my feet on taking on what I need to do. And sometimes it's taking that step that really motivates you because now my back is against the wall. I'm working harder than I've worked in a very long time, but I'm also learning a lot more, and I know I'm going to get where I want to be a lot more quickly than had I been doing it on my own. So I'd encourage anybody who's even curious to write pizza. And for some people who are really interested, write deep dish pizza. And for some people who are just absolutely just ready to go, write Chicago deep dish pizza.
There you
And we
go.
will we will reach out to you.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
reach out to you. We set up a little action call where we just talk to you about what the program is, how it can benefit you, if it's right for you, because we don't really accept everybody. We want people who are really dedicated to this goal of becoming a web developer. And yeah, if you're interested, you can sign up. There's two amazing guarantees that we offer. The first is a 30-day guarantee that if you don't like it within the first 30 days, you get your money back, no questions asked. So it's basically a trial period. You can try it out for a month and see if it's right for you. So there's really no risk in that. The second one is if you do the program for 12 months and you don't find a job as a developer, you just keep working with us for free until you do. Right. So we basically guarantee that you're going to get a job in the next 12 months, which nobody else is doing. Okay.
And
So
we have a whole module on resumes, on soft skills,
yeah.
on all that stuff. So like,
And
yeah,
how
I
to get
mean,
work immediately. Right.
yeah,
So if this is something that you really want, if you're interested in becoming a web developer, this is probably the best program that you're ever going to find out there. So, and I'm not just saying that because we do it. I'm saying that because I've looked out there for stuff like this for years and it doesn't
yeah.
exist.
We've
Right.
also done a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So with that, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you rate pizza in the comments. If you want
Chicago
to
deep
chat
dish
with,
pizza
yeah, Chicago deep dish or whatever kind of pizza you like. You could put like your ham and
or
pineapple
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian.
pizza, the Hawaiian pizza, if you guys like that stuff. Yeah, exactly. You get a job or you mentor for life, Chris. That's right. All right.
Right.
Happy 420, everybody. We will see you next Saturday, bright and early at 9 a.m. And if you are in the web dev incubator, we'll see you in about 20 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, let's do it. Peace, guys.
Peace.
Have a good
Peace.
Saturday.